Good evening. I'd like to provide the American people with an update on our efforts to protect the integrity of our very important
2020 Fatball season.
I was winning when I went to play COD last night. I said, stop the count, what a great victory. I finished COD, all of these mysterious points appear. All for Jordan. All for Jordan. Now, I remember leading. Should have stopped the count. I said, stop the count. I think there's some major fraud here. Major fraud. People not letting me have my waiver pickup I want. Fraud. There will never be a fair fantasy league as long as Sleepy Jordan, sleeping away in the chef's hat, is always in charge. I will take this to the courts and we will win. Stop the count where it was. I'm the winner.
Bradley, yes, we are doing something a little differently today in What to Watch because it seems like the only thing people are talking about today is
Nate's loss.
And some of that talk is over whether we can trust that all the
Points
are being counted.
Nate Young
tweeted this last night saying he'd easily win with legal
points
casts and claiming observers were not allowed to do their job. That tweet was flagged for being misleading. We are here now to debunk some of that. Let's show you what is happening in Arizona.
And people from both parties are watching.
O.J. Simpson's and Aaron Hernandez's.
And they're volunteering.
They're volunteering. This is their civic duty.
Yeah, these are real, true frontline workers, actually. Is there any job that's more important right now than counting the
points?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they are essential frontline workers. And I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers sent dinner to one of the folks counting in Pennsylvania. That's really cool because they are so essential.
And it is now my great honor to introduce the
#1 seed in Week 13 of 2020 Fantasy Fatball, Jordan Bansler. Tight little ends team.
Delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most
points.
Hello everyone, this is your commissioner and current #1 seed speaking. I thought after that wonderful introduction, I'd throw it back to the end of my video last week. Let's check that out. That's it, folks. If you have more questions, I probably messed it up. I probably don't care at all. I'll see you guys next week when I am the 1 seed. Told you, #1 seed. Let's get going into some segments. We're going to start off with the biggest dumper of the week. This week's biggest dumper of the week is Will Dissly. That's right, folks. Scoring only 0.0 points, Will Dissly needed a whopping 1.14 points to knock me off this week for Nate Young. That's 1 catch for 1.4 yards. Couldn't do it. 0 catches. Probably only 1 target. Yikes. That's a big dump. Moving on to our second biggest dumper of the week, an equally big dump, but not as costly. This is Jonnu Smith of Frank's team. Now, Frank's team kind of all took the week off this week against Evan, who somehow pulled out a win on his way to climbing and grasping out of the Brittany Bowl. We'll talk more about that later. But 0.0 points from Jonnu Smith? Woo! It's not going to do it. That's a big dump. Next up, we have our Tim Beckmans of the week.
my leg.
After a long hiatus, when I thought our fantasy league was finally getting smart, we forgot to check our lineups before Sunday kickoffs again. Ryan luckily didn't need to, as he completely punted Ray out of playoff contention, and he started Julio Jones, who was, I think, called out on Friday? Dude, Ryan, it's like 2 seconds. You open the app, you see the big red O, 0 projected points. You just move him to your bench, take another player, and you put him in there. Good luck with that tactic on playoff weeks. Yikes. Our second Tim Beckman of the week makes a little bit more sense considering this league mate probably still doesn't know his password, auto drafts all the time, and already clinched for the Brittany Bowl. Yet again, somehow, Tim Beckman came up for him and he got a win this week. Brandon. Maybe if you weren't out proposing to girls all over the place, you'd be able to check your lineup and see that Todd Gurley isn't playing. Whatever, guys. I just worry for your locker rooms when you're starting injured players. Come on. Here's your friendly reminder, Ryan, that the trade deadline has closed. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for in this video, how can your team make it into the playoffs? We're starting off with one of the harder paths with Ray Duncan and the Murder Hornets. Ray would need Jeff to lose to Q tonight. He would also need Jeff to lose next week. He would also need Evan to lose next week to Nick Liliati. If all that happens, and Ray scores 191.96 more points than Jeff Rollins and Evan Lorenz in that week, you would need to have a plus score of 190-something, then you're in the playoffs. That is unlikely, but there's still hope. Next up, Evan. Now this looked really depressing even earlier this week, but somehow Evan is pulling off a win against Frank. Now save a massive play by the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in this afternoon's game, Evan's going to win this week. If that's the case, Evan would need a win over Nick Liliati next week and more points than Jeff to clinch. He would also need, let's say that doesn't happen, If Evan does not win next week, he would need a loss to Bird, a Jeff loss, and more points than Jeff after the regular season. Finally, if he wins and Jeff loses, that is an official clinch to the playoffs. It's looking good, Evan. It's looking good. You just need to beat Bird next week. Next up, Jeff. Fallen from glory. That's right, folks. If he wins tonight, he clinches. Unlikely, considering that Q still has a player to go. Now, if Jeff loses tonight and wins over Alex Crump and Michelle next week, he would need more points than Evan, but he would clinch. Let's say he loses tonight and loses to Alex Crump and Michelle next week. What would happen then? He would need more points than Evan, and he would need Evan to lose to Bird. So there's a couple of different scenarios there for you, Jeff. We'll see if you can do it. Let's move on to Bird. Now, Bird, you would need to win over Evan next week. You would need a Jeff loss this week and next if you lose to Evan. So no win next week, but if Jeff loses out, you're in. Finally, if you lose and if Jeff wins in week 13, you would need a boatload of points. So you better not lose. Or hope that Jeff continues losing, which is probably likely. Next up, let's talk about Ryan and Nate. If you guys, for each of you, if you win next week, you're in. That's all you need to do. Win and you're in. You control your own destiny. Now, if you happen to lose next week and Jeff wins and Bird is there and Evan wins as well and you guys all have 6 wins and there's a bunch of points going around, it's possible you make it into the losers bracket, but really unlikely. So you're probably in, but win and you're definitely in. Now, moving on to Quentin and Brandon. You guys are both in the Brittany Bowl, but you also won, making my life for this stupid segment really hard. Thanks. Jesus. Why didn't you try earlier in the year? Whatever. I do have a voting matter for the league. Currently, the Brittany Bowl, the losers move on in the Brittany Bowl. So, the bracket is 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So the loser of each of these games would advance to the Toilet Bowl or the Brittany Bowl championship. Now, I don't necessarily like the idea that the 9 seed has to face the 10 seed and the 11th seed gets to face the 12 seed. So what I'm proposing is that we kind of move things around and make it. So the 9 seed faces the 12 seed in week 14. The 10 seed faces the 11 seed in week 14, much like a regular bracket, and then the losers still move on. That way, it allows the 11 and 12 seed, the alleged worst 2 teams after the regular season, to play each other in the Brittany Bowl championship. How it's currently set up does not allow for that. So, vote. Put it in the text chat. Send me a text in the Fatball thing saying, yeah, I want 9, 10, 11, 12, or yes, I want 12, 9, 10, 11. Let me know. Moving on to the number 1 seed bowl. That's right. We already know who clinched no one new has clinched since my last video, so let's talk about Nick Russo and myself. Now, most likely, the winner of our matchup in Week 13 will have the number 1 seed. I do currently have a 19 or so point lead on Nick Russo for the entire points for of the season. So that means it's possible if I lose to Nick, but by less than 19 points, I'm still going to finish higher than him. Now, there's Alex and Frank we have to worry about, I guess, but all we need to know while looking around is the winner of this matchup most likely is going to be the number 1 seed in our playoffs. Now, that doesn't come with a bye week or anything, but it probably does mean you get to face Jeff or Evan. Nice. That's it for this week. Look forward to those playoffs. We'll see who's clinching. And we'll also see who's going to be a Brittany Bowl champion very soon. Adios.